Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I am Ethan, joined, as always, by Most Valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
New week, new stream or skip segment. We've been down this path before. I introduce a segment. I introduce you. And for the benefit of our new listeners or returning listeners who have just forgotten, you take a few seconds and remind everyone what are the terms and conditions of our stream or skip segment.
All right. So this is, by the way, our 300th episode.
Oh, can we take a moment to bask in that a little bit?
Please.
And to recall how maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we were sitting in breakfast with our two friends in Dubai, just going off about films. And they basically said, guys, you need a hobby. And we said, this is our hobby.
That's right.
They said, well, then you need a podcast. and we said, yeah, but we don't want to use our real names. We want to make up names. And we came up with Ethan and Pete.
That's
after
right.
the famous Tom Cruise characters. Ever since then, I think that now 300 episodes, not a small feat. Goes without saying, but it's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed doing this with you. You've been fantastic podcast partners. So thanks for all your support.
I could not agree more. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun.
Equally as fun for our listeners.
Okay, streamer skip.
All right, so Ethan and I have prepared lists of TV shows for each other to watch. Every week, we randomly assign each other one of those shows to watch. We watch 2 episodes if it's a series, or 30 minutes if it's a feature-length program. And on that basis, we determine if that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
I had a show on Netflix called The Waterfront.
That's right.
And I started this series a little bit prejudiced. I mean, I feel that we've talked about this before, there's a lot of content on Netflix, things I haven't heard of before, things that haven't really been promoted a lot. And I feel like they just throw a lot of stuff against the wall and sees what sticks. And I was pretty sure, if you had asked me before even watching Waterfront, that this would be a very bland Netflix kind of family drama about some type of family business and relationships and who's mad at who and so forth. I thought it would be a skip. I mean, that was just my initial gut reaction.
Sure.
I was wrong.
Oh,
which are not easy words to say. Let me give you the background of this. This is about a family from like some kind of small North Carolina coastal town. Like perhaps it's taking place in the Outer Banks or something like that. They own a fishery, which means they fish off the coast of Carolina in the Atlantic Ocean. They catch fish and then they, package it on ice and they sell it all over the place. And then they've expanded and they also have their own like seaside fish restaurant. So in this small little hamlet of a town, they're, to use the pun, kind of the big fish. They're not like billionaires, but they're, again, in this small kind of like fishing town, they're kind of like the prominent citizens. Yeah.
Okay.
It is led by husband and wife family. They've got 2 adult kids. The main adult kid, his character name is Kane Buckley. You may have seen him in Animal Kingdom, where he plays Darren Cody.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Here, he plays a married, doting father, pure, California, Southern drawl, kind of guy. So, I mean, very, very different characters. And I have to say, he pulls it off extremely well. Sometimes you look at a guy, you're like, I just can't see him as any other character. He pulls it off very, very well. He's got short, kind of Southern hairstyle. Like, he pulls off the Southern accent very well, to be honest. I'm not even sure where he's from, but he did great on this. he's kind of taken over the family business a little bit for his father. His father is a little bit back and forth. He's got kind of like some heart issues. He's a little bit of a womanizer and a drinker. So Kane has taken over the family business. We find out that he never went to college. Instead, he kind of stayed on to take over the family business, help out the family. His sister, who's roughly the same age, let's say they're in their late 20s, early 30s or something. She is recovering from substance abuse. So she's kind of like the black sheep in the family. And we find out that Kane, when he took over the business for his dad, realized that they're in a bad financial position. So rather than kind of lose all of their land, all of their business and everything, he began using his fishing boats to run drugs. So this turns a little bit into a Breaking Bad type situation. And eventually the whole family gets drawn into it. Father, the wife, and his sister, and the extended family. It's very Breaking Badish, where there's an underlying kind of illegal activity, but the people aren't really bad and they've got kind of good intentions, but it centers also around a lot of the personal relationships and all the different things they're going through in terms of marriages and infidelity and friendships and trying to hide their bad behavior from other people. Then hiding things gets them in trouble, even though it's not necessarily their fault because they're hiding it for someone's to protect them. And you know the drill. I binged all 8 episodes in season 1.
Okay.
And I just really got into it. Oh, Topher Grace is in it as well, by the way.
Okay.
As a bad guy. Pretty funny bad guy. I like a lot of things about the show. I like all the characters. I mean, there is no annoying kid. Everyone is just, I think, written in a nice way that no one really like grates on your nerves. You know, it's not like, oh, I hate his wife, or oh, I hate the son, or everyone is maybe not like likable, but they're not like dislikable. And they've developed a lot of characters now, right? So,
Okay.
I mean, we've got the husband and wife, the matriarch and the patriarch. They've got 2 kids, obviously, have taken over the business. The daughter has an ex-husband and a son. And then we also kind of see the ex-husband's new wife. Kane has a wife and he's got an old high school girlfriend. Then we've got, the local sheriff. Then we've got the local sheriff deputy. Then we've got this long lost son. Then you've got some business partners. You've got a DEA agent. You've got, more than one kind of bad family of drug dealers. There's a lot of characters who are reasonably well developed in 8 episodes. You and I have watched a lot of shows and we've kind of complained like, there's only 4 characters in this. It's just overload. Here, I think they've really done a good job of giving us a lot of good characters that we've kind of gotten to know. Maybe not all of their backstories, but there's a good variety. There's violence. I mean, there's a good bit of shooting, but it's more like revolver shooting and less of like, machine guns and like
Right.
ambushes and stuff. And as far as I'm aware, there's not like stabby beheadings and stuff. Definitely there's violence, but it's kind of like rated PG-13 violence. It doesn't get like, I don't think there's any vulgarity. I don't think there's any F-bombs. If there are, it's very few and far between. I like the show. I hesitate to give it a must subscribe because I don't think it's as timeless of a classic as Breaking Bad or Suits or something like that. But I have to say, it is a really good mooch, something I really enjoyed watching. I'm not counting down the days to a season 2, but absolutely, if there's a season 2, I would start it tonight. So
Okay.
I think it's a reasonably good find on Streamer Skip, and it's called The Waterfront on Netflix.
Okay, very good. I'm surprised. Not surprised. I'm glad that you were able to watch it all anyway.
All right. So without further ado, what was your assignment and how did it turn out?
I, on the other hand, had a show, which isn't a show, but it's a documentary called The Cowboy Cartel.
Okay.
And as you would guess, it's about drug running. and it's about, well, cowboys. So, I mean, the name really has it all, really. The premise of the documentary is that it's about the Zetas in Mexico, very famous cartel. Everyone really knows about them, and
Right.
how they're laundering money in the United States by purchasing racehorses in Texas. And that's it.
Oh.
It's, look, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Documentaries are hit or miss because you really have to like the subject that you're watching to appreciate how interesting the whole genre is, or not genre, the topic is,
Yeah.
right? Super Size Me is famous, or anything by, all the
Yeah.
Michael Moore stuff. If you're really invested in those topics, that's what's going to make you invested in the documentary. I am invested in drugs, not as a user, just as a
Or
not
as an
just
investor. Or as an
not as a
investor.
user or an investor, but only as
Our 300th and final episode.
in the sense that, like, I love Scarface,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Got it.
But, like, if you're going to make me watch a documentary about it, I mean, you had a bunch of FBI agents kind of talking about how they went after a horse racing gang that was involved in the Zetas. It's fine. It's not bad. If you love horse racing, or if you really love drugs and the idea of, law enforcement behind drugs, this is for you. It's not for me. It's a skip for me.
Let me ask you a question. You're right about documentaries being hit or miss. But to me, I think about most documentaries as the documentary filmmaker. Like I think of like the ones about like all the people who are climbing like the mountains,
Yeah.
free solo stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's a filmmaker who's just like fascinated by the topic. And it's like,
Exactly.
you know what? I want to explain to people, like show them what goes on behind the scenes so that they appreciate how amazing this is. Who made this movie? Because I agree, interviewing FBI agents in like a conference room is a very dry subject matter, right?
I sneakingly suspect documentaries like this are actually funded by those agencies. I think they go to the different studios and be like, hey, listen, we want to make a documentary to highlight how successful our drug enforcement agency is, and kind of showcase to the world that you don't want to bring your drugs here because we are going to come get you, even if it's something as innocuous as running horses in races. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
it's
you're
dry.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's no one sits there and or I doubt many filmmakers are sitting there and being like, man, those Zetas are crazy. Instead of implanting themselves into the Zetas to kind of talk about how good the Zetas, or how the Zetas are what they are, that's something I would watch. But to watch the
Yeah.
FBI go after the Zetas, I mean, come on. I mean, this is a classic good guy versus bad guy situation.
Look, I think it would have also been interesting. Like, I kind of read on this a little bit to prepare. This seemed like a very kind of textbook investigation, surveillance, and they got like a big win. Okay,
Exactly.
that's kind of by the book. It would have been interesting if there was a guy who's like, hey, I sat in this hollowed out tree with a pair of binoculars for 3 straight months.
Yeah.
And they didn't figure out that I was sitting in their tree or their attic or whatever. And this is my story of how awful it was for me to be stuck in the trunk of a tree right outside the guy's house. Like if he would have saw me or caught me or a dog would have smelled me, I would have been like killed on the spot. But instead, I got all this information because I had a notebook and I had a transmitter and I had binoculars and I got all this information, and that's how I did it. Like
Yeah.
that's I don't know if that's an hour documentary, but that's a little bit more interesting. You could show like the diagram of the tree, and you can show like
Yeah,
everything,
exactly. It's not.
But here it seemed like it was
It's
just
not
paperwork.
dynamic. This isn't
Yeah.
dynamic. It just
Yeah.
seems like a fluff piece, PR piece
like a
that
pat
was
on the
made
back.
by
Yeah.
the FBI to be like, hey, we're good guys, and this is how good we are.
All right. So I assume you're giving it that a skip.
I am giving it a skip.
All right. What do we have next week?
All right. So next week, you're going to be on Netflix watching a new show called Sirens.
I'm excited.
I don't know anything about this. And I am on Apple watching something called Karem or Cream or Karem. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Karame and the Die have assigned this to you because it's really promoted heavily on Apple TV Plus. And what I gather from it is that it is, I'm going to use this term wrong, in like Victorian French times. I'm sure that's a wrong thing to say.
Victorian French is great, though.
You know what I mean? Renaissance French times, maybe also the wrong thing to say.
Oh.
And someone is both a pastry chef and a spy. Okay, Sirens is on Netflix, and I don't really know the plot. It looks like 3 women get into all sorts of shenanigans.
All right. I like shenanigans. I like women. Could be good.
True. All right, Pete, before we sign off on this week's episode, can you read off our YouTube credentials and all the other social media jazz we've got?
All right. Leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell.
Well said. Congratulations once again on
300
episodes of the Films and Stuff podcast. Honestly, it should not be taken lightly. We've got the Google Drive folders to prove it.
Yeah, that's right.
And listeners, appreciate you listening, whether it's your first time, your 300th time, or more than likely somewhere in between. So thanks everybody for your support, Pete, as always. And we look forward to having another, I guess, 700 episodes at least. Let's keep this thing going. Right?
That's right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Films and Stuff podcast.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.